Hi guys, it's Missy, and we're going to talk about our three phyla of worms today, starting with Platyhelminthes, which is our flatworms. An easy way to remember this is going to be plat means flat. They're going to be terrestrial as well as aquatic species. You can see here on the left side and the right side of the screen we have some marine, brightly colored species, and the smaller terrestrial ones. I saw these growing up in my front yard. The thing you are going to realize as we move through these three phyla of worms is a large difference of their body development. All three are going to be triploblastic, meaning they have three tissue layers, unlike our cnidarians that were diploblastic, only having two tissue layers. Starting with Platyhelminthes, they are not going to have a coelom, or a body cavity, meaning they are acoelomates. A meaning no or lack thereof, coelom meaning body cavity, so no coelom or no body cavity. Their method of digestion is going to be the same as cnidarians, GVC meaning gastrovascular cavity, one way in and the same way out. Food goes in, it's digested, and whatever is left as waste is going to exit through the same entrance. They're not going to have a circulation system, meaning they're going to rely on diffusion for nutrients and oxygen. If you think about how a flatworm is made up, there's no room for a body cavity, so there's no room for a circulatory or a digestive or a complete digestive system. When we talked about cnidarians, we talked about a nerve net, or an even distribution of nerves throughout the body. And when we get to flatworms, we're going to have the first evidence of cephalization, meaning the concentration of nerves towards the anterior end of the organism. Anterior means head, so think of it as more of a brain. And in a flatworm, we're going to have a ganglia, or a mass of nerves, and this serves as a simple brain, and then two nerve cords running along their body to control their movement. These guys are going to be hermaphroditic, and we talk about that as a benefit because when these guys are evenly distributed through an environment, when one runs across another, no matter what, they're going to be able to reproduce rather than the 50-50 chance of running across the opposite gender. Here's a diagram of a flatworm. It is in your animal packet. The mouth is actually located in the middle of the animal, and remember, since these guys are relying on diffusion, this is a benefit because now the food does not need to travel from the end to end, but rather the middle to either end. This pink area is going to be the gastrovascular cavity. You can see it is extending into all parts of the body. The ganglia up here serving as a simple brain, and the nerve cords running throughout the body to help for movement. These guys do have a unique feature called eye cups. They are light responsive. They do not give the animal vision. And then they are bilaterally symmetric, meaning that you can use one line to divide the animal in half, giving you distinct left and right halves that are mirror images of each other. A couple examples of Platyhelminthes, or flatworms. You've got the terrestrial carnivorous type. This guy, you can see the mouth here clearly eating a snail. We have liver flukes. These guys have a complex life cycle using multiple hosts. These are very small. And then tapeworms might be the scariest of them all, and what's crazy about them is each of these segments are going to be repeating reproductive structures. So if you do not remove this anterior end that contains the hooks, you are not going to be able to get rid of the animal. These tapeworms are going to be an exception to our ingestion rule. Ingestion means to eat food. These guys are living in digested food in a digestive cavity of an animal, so they actually just obtain their nutrients through diffusion. The next phylum we are going to talk about is Nematoda, or roundworms. The most frequently noticed roundworm you probably recognize is going to be the heartworms found in many dogs. These guys are defined with a cylindrical shaped body with a tapered tail, a blunt head, and we will talk about what this outer layer is called in a moment. And taking one step forward from our acoelomates, Platyhelminthes, these nematodes are going to be pseudocoelomates. Pseudo meaning false, you learn that with pseudopod meaning false foot, pseudocoelom meaning false cavity or false body cavity. These are not going to be having a complete they do have a complete digestive system, meaning there is an uninterrupted tube from their mouth to their anus. If you think about our flatworms and how there was no room for a body cavity, you can imagine how there was no room for a digestive system. Now with this pseudocoelom, or the fluid-filled cavity, there is room for a digestive system to run from the mouth to the anus. We still don't have a circulatory system. That pseudocoelom is going to be responsible for the distribution of nutrients and oxygen. What you need to realize is that a digestive system is going to digest food, but the circulatory system is in fact responsible for distributing it throughout the body. These are not going to be hermaphroditic. They actually have two sexes. And that protective covering that was shown in this picture here, kind of looks like corduroy or velvet, is called a cuticle. It is multiple layers of dead cells that keeps these worms from dehydrating, and in many cases keeps them from being dissolved if they are parasitic and living in the intestines of animals. A couple examples are going to be a hookworm and what you probably recognize as heartworms. I will spare you the pictures of these guys. It's a little gruesome. Our final phylum of worms is going to be annelids, or segmented worms. The most recognized is probably going to be the earthworm. Many of y'all might recognize the leeches as well. These are true coelomates. They have a true body cavity, and from this point forward, every phyla we talk about after will be true coelomates as well. What a coelom gives the opportunity for is for organs and organ systems to develop. There is room inside the body for organs to expand and move around. These also have complete digestive tracts just like nematodes, but what is a little bit different is they're going to start to have specialized regions like crops or gizzards. These have a closed circulatory system. This is our first evidence of a circulatory system, and when we move throughout our phyla from here on out, there might be a closed or an open, but there will be some sort of circulatory system. A closed circulatory system is that in which the blood is completely contained in vessels the entire time it circulates the body. When we get to an open circulatory system, there are going to be times in the body when the blood is not in vessels, but is coming in direct contact with the organs themselves. These are hermaphroditic, meaning one individual containing both sexes. Again, that's a benefit, because if they run into another individual of the same species, there is no doubt they will be able to reproduce. The nervous system of these guys is a simple brain. Remember, cephalization is that concentration of nerves at the anterior end, or the head end. They have a nerve cord, but the advancement here is that we're going to see a cluster of nerves in each segment of the animal, rather than just two nerve cords. Like the name suggests, these are going to have segmented bodies. In flatworms, we talked about a tapeworm having segments, but that's not quite what we mean by segments for bodies. This is actual subdivision of the body along its length in repeated parts. This is allowing for flexibility and better motility. These are extremely important to the environment. Earthworms are a good example. They create air pockets as they burrow. Their feces they leave behind contain nutrients, and they break up the matter of the soil. Here's a cross-section of what looks like to be an earthworm. You can see the actual partitions that are segmenting the body. What does not get segmented is the blood vessel and the digestive cavity, or the intestines. Everything else does get segmented, and you see this cluster of nerve, which would be repeated in segment to segment. The nerve cord would also have segments in each part. These little bristles are what's helping them burrow in the soil, and then excretory organs helping to remove waste. Again, the digestive and circulatory systems are not segmented. They do run through all the segments. A couple examples. Leeches. They're actually used in the medical world to encourage blood flow to certain regions that are cut off of circulation. These marine fanworms are sessile, meaning they do not move. And this giant Australian earthworm, up to 3 feet or 3 meters long. The earthworms are extremely, again, beneficial to the soil, breaking it up, leaving behind nutrients, and creating air pockets. To review our 3 phyla of worms, we started with flatworms, which were acoelomates, meaning no body cavity. They did not have a circulatory system, and they had a GVC for digestion. When we move forward to roundworms, we had pseudocoelomates and an actual complete digestive system, but still no circulatory system. And finally, with segmented worms, we were true coelomates, true body cavities, a complete digestive tract, and evidence of the first circulatory system, and this one was a closed circulatory system.